Hi, Kat. Welcome to Drag and Drop. It's a pleasure to have you as a guest.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
You're my first guest from the Lovable community, so I'm excited to have you on and get you to share, your I think a really amazing journey so far.
Awesome. Well, there are a lot of excited people in the Lovable community, so hopefully I'm the first of a few more on your
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah. Well, yeah. Before we dive into things, it'd be good for for those obviously a bit of a background, a bit about yourself, a bit of an introduction would be great to start with.
Sure. So, first thing I like to lead with is I consider myself a non-technical founder. So, and I think that's important because of there's so much happening in the AI space, and I view that as so much opportunity, and it's exciting. Um, but I have started a few businesses in a variety of different spaces. So, I got my start in my career in e-commerce.
Yeah.
And retail. And then my first business was a consumer product. Then I ran a services business. And now I run a consulting practice working on go to market strategy. And oftentimes now that involves building internal
Oh, wow.
tools or customer facing tools on Lovable for my clients.
Yeah. And obviously, going back a year, right?
Mhm.
You didn't even probably know the term vibe coding, right?
Yeah.
And it's something that's really taken off. Fast forwarding to today, and you're kind of building products, right? So can you talk me through, obviously, one, how you came to know of this, right? What kind of pushed you to
Mhm.
try it out, and how that kind of journey's been from then till now.
Sure. Yeah. So you are right. A year ago, I didn't know what vibe coding was really. I didn't know what a PRD or a product requirements document is. Now I use both every day.
Yeah.
So the world is moving quickly. But yeah, I guess how I got started in this, I always had a curiosity and an interest. I love technology. I grew up in the Bay Area, so it's
Mm.
like it's in the
Yeah.
water there.
Yes, definitely.
And and so, when ChatGPT rolled out and Claude, I started tinkering with it and playing with it and figuring out how it could sort of be a thought partner for me in my workflow. And then, I started hearing about vibe coding and Lovable and Bolt and all these different platforms.
Yeah.
And it was I put it on my list, like, okay, I'll get to
Yeah.
it. I'll get to it. And then Lovable announced on LinkedIn that they were going to do, they called it a build-a-thon, right?
Yeah.
So um, for women only. So if she builds is the community, and
Mm.
women could come and participate and build something and sort of compete. But the
Yeah.
primary point was to learn about it and how to
Yeah.
use the platform Lovable. And so again, I had never played with it before or worked on it, and I just threw in an application and was like, all right,
Yeah.
let's figure this out. And so it was accepted to build my idea, which was, I call it the Duolingo for
Okay.
learning AI. It's
Yeah.
now called AI Recess. Um, but that's how I learned Lovable. First, I did a landing page in Lovable, and then I built AI Recess, which was a platform that now I'm continuing to build out because I ultimately won the hackathon, which was
Yeah.
like not
Yeah.
on my bingo card, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, and so, but the reason in sharing that was I think we're in this really special time where if you just give yourself the chance to learn and explore, you're going to surprise yourself. And
Yeah.
along the way, I've become involved in a lot of really interesting communities that have continued to push me along that learning path. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think it's an exciting time to just be open to exploring and learning,
Yeah.
and things are moving quickly, so it's a good time to get involved.
Yeah. And prior to that, what was your, prior to kind of tools, like Lovable, what was the kind of most frustrating part for you? Was it more kind of, having to rely on others, getting others to build things for you, or just
Yeah.
having those ideas and parking them because you couldn't do it yourself?
Yeah, so I've had, a few different roles in my career,
Yeah.
primarily in the sales and marketing functions of companies. And then when I, ran my businesses that I really leaned into those areas as
Yeah.
well. And I remember there were certain points, especially in the services business that we were running, where we had about 50 employees, 10 million in revenue, just to give you a size
Yeah.
for it. And I remember thinking, gosh, it would be really great to have a dashboard that I could just pull up every day.
Yeah.
It would populate, from HubSpot and sales data and all these different metrics that we were reviewing manually or in spreadsheets.
Yeah.
And there was nothing, no SaaS platform out there. There was, I'm not going to pay a developer to build it because it would be really
Yeah.
expensive. And
Yeah. Sure.
it wasn't, I didn't have to have it for the business. It was a nice to have. And so, you know, I think a lot of operators have those moments where they have like their wish list, right? Of
Yeah.
things
Sure.
they want to build, and now we can go build it. And that is what's crazy to me, and I think really eye-opening. And I sort of get on my soapbox about, because if you are in running a business or in a business and you really know your craft,
Mm.
you are the best person to go and build what you need to solve your problem.
Yeah.
And so I've been on a tirade doing that now.
Yeah.
with
Yeah. And talking about AI research, what was, with that idea, what was the kind of thinking around it? And did you get any kind of feedback as to why you actually won? What was the reason for you winning the first kind of, hackathon?
Yeah. So the idea stemmed, and I share this with people now when, because I get the question of, well, okay, Lovable's cool, but what do I build? I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And start with the problems that you see in your work or in your life. And that's what I did. So through my go-to-market consulting, I was working with a lot of sales teams, a lot of
Mm.
marketing teams. And I realized, I mentioned earlier on that I like to tinker with ChatGPT
Yeah.
and Claude. And I realized that for things like preparing for discovery calls or, different workflows, people weren't doing that. They weren't
Yeah.
opening the tools, using these tools that were
Yeah.
new.
Yeah.
And so the problem that I was trying to solve was, I don't want to add another thing to someone's plate because we've all got enough to do at work.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
what if we create something where people can, you know, help the workflows that they're already working through and make it better through experimenting with AI. So that's where AI Recess came
Mm.
about. So we have these various challenges. We call them challenges. We now have
Yeah.
quests, which are like challenges
Nice.
that build on each
Yeah.
other. Um, but essentially, you go to the platform and there are choices. So one is, uh, build a proposal
Mm.
based on a sales call that you had. And so it has a little prompt. It shows you how to structure it, and then you literally copy and paste it and go to Claude or ChatGPT,
Mm.
and it'll build the proposal for you. So it takes 5 minutes to do, but
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
very bite-sized way to sort of get familiar with these platforms and
Yeah.
understand how it can help um, you work better in your
Yeah.
role.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I think the point you were asking, well, why did you win?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a black box. Totally honest. I think there was a lot of luck
You'll
involved.
take it. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think, I've heard anecdotally what stood
Yeah.
out were a few things. One, um, especially with Lovable and the SheBuilds community,
Mm.
apps and products that solve, you know, learning, knowledge sharing,
Mm.
social impact, those are really
Yeah.
important to the company. And so that was one piece of it. And then the
Mm.
the second piece that I heard was the design. So,
Okay.
that's something we can talk about if you want to,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
design systems I learned about,
Mm.
right? And, if you prompt Lovable, you're going to get back a design that's fairly
Yeah.
standard. But
Yeah.
if you know some terms to use, if you know where to
Mm.
go grab some code that you can maybe paste in there to really make your platform or your app stand out, um, it first of all, it's really fun,
Yeah.
and you sort of get this instant dopamine hit when you see it built
Yeah.
out. But it's a way for your app to stand out from the sea of things that are being built right now.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Mhm.
And obviously all over LinkedIn, the marketing around vibe coding and Lovable is easy. Anyone can do it. But I'm interested to know, was there any difficult moments in that journey? Is there anything that obviously any marketing for any platform will be it's the best thing since
Right.
sliced bread, right? So
Right.
is there anything in there that you thought actually this is quite difficult that you could advise to others who are maybe you a year ago with this frustration thinking about things?
Yeah, the biggest thing is planning before you jump in to prompt, right?
Mm.
So that was the biggest takeaway I had. Um, I did some very high level research before I did the hackathon, and the number one thing I saw people saying was write a PRD, fill out a
Mm.
PRD. I didn't know what a PRD was.
Yeah.
What does that even stand for? Okay. So first I learned it stands for a product requirements document. And just a fancy way for people who might not know
Yeah.
is it's a way to outline, who is the customer, what's the problem you're solving for, and what's the outcome that you want to see. And so I now have this prompt that I literally put into Claude. It's on my
Yeah.
website. Anyone who wants to grab it.
Yeah.
But you put it into Claude and it asks you the questions that so that you have the answers to fill out the PRD, and then it spits out a PRD at the
Yeah.
end. But essentially, at the start of the hackathon, I spent probably an hour putting that together and really being meticulous about
Yeah.
what are we solving for? And then, oh, by the way, we only have 2 days to do this. So
Mm.
let's rein it in and not
Yeah.
do all the 10 features. So I think that's my biggest piece of advice,
Mm.
is start with a PRD, grab my prompt if you want, or not, use someone else's, but do it. Start with a
Yeah.
PRD and then be thoughtful about what you can really focus on and build well, and then you can add to it later, but really
Mm.
being thoughtful about those first few iterations, I think, is really key. And I'll also add, I then, on my fifth project that I was building, I thought, oh, this is super easy. I don't need a PRD for this.
Yeah. Okay.
I learned my lesson. I spent
Yeah.
4 hours debugging this
Wow.
very simple program that I was supposed to the point where I almost scrapped it because I was like, this is
Oh,
a waste
wow.
of my time. So
Wow.
PRD is like my number one piece of advice.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And, obviously, I was going through in the preparation, going through kind of your profile things, you talk about things you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And one thing you talk about is as operators are the new developers, right? So I'm interested to know kind of a bit more about what you actually mean in practice with that term.
Yeah, that's just it's a sentiment or maybe a rally cry,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
To encourage other people. I went to business school. I work with a
yeah,
lot of other business owners, and I talk to people who have the sentiment of, oh, it's cool, but I don't really know what I would do. I don't know what I
yeah,
would
sure.
use it for. And I think it just is so apparent to me that if you're working in the business and you're very close to the problem, whether you're running a company or if you are, maybe senior management at a
Yeah,
company, you can really set yourself apart
mm,
from your colleagues. You can really grow your company, even just by exploring what you can build in a platform like Lovable, because it is so new. Is such a new technology, but also you don't have to play this game of telephone with
yeah,
developers. Like
yeah,
you can outline, you can write your PRD, you can outline what needs to happen, and then you can, if you're in a larger enterprise, you can then go at least prototype it. And I've
yeah,
done that for clients to have a larger tech team.
mm,
I'm the one building the go-to-market tools, prototyping them, and then it's super clear. Like I don't
yeah,
need to build a PowerPoint anymore, thank God.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
I just build something in Lovable and
mm,
it's on brand. It looks good and it very, very quickly articulates, what it needs to look like, what the user flow is, and what the outcome needs to be.
yeah,
So,
yeah. And I think, yeah, definitely, obviously, we specialize in the low code space, and obviously Lovable moved towards more the no code side. And
right.
low code obviously was to bring business and development much closer, right?
Hmm.
And obviously Lovable gives a level of, okay, well, now the business person themselves can go
Yeah.
and build something and then
Right.
present it. If it needs to kind of be built out at the enterprise level, then obviously then you go on.
Exactly. Yeah.
So do you believe that will be the way forward, where it's more business people now building these things and kind of really pushing the needle in kind of, will they be called business people anymore? Will they kind of sit on some different terminology?
Yeah. I absolutely think that's the way we're going. And I think that, you sort of see two camps coming out of it. One
Yeah.
is, oh my gosh, our jobs aren't going to be here in a
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
I don't see it that way. I see it, I'm a glass is always half full,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
truly believe that, oh my gosh, the opportunity is incredible here. Because again, if you're open to trying out the new technology, you're close to the business problems, you're close to customers, you can get
Yeah.
feedback quickly. All these things that, if you're an engineer, you might A, not want to talk to customers,
Yeah. Yeah.
and B, you because your superpower is coding.
Yeah.
But let's have the operators prototype it at least, and then get feedback from customers on the sales call that they were already going to have.
Yeah.
And then again, to your point, if you really need to build out an enterprise solution, then there are development teams and all sorts of different options after that you can explore.
Yeah. And with operators, obviously, you probably agree that they see a lot of the problems prior to it getting to the technology team, right? So they
Yeah.
can do, for them, they don't want to be always running to the IT team, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things now where they can kind of do themselves.
Yes, and so saves time, obviously,
Mm.
from the team
Yeah.
to the development team to come in and build it out, and also money, right?
Yeah.
So, yes, you're buying credits on Lovable or
Yeah.
whatever platform is your
Sure.
choice, but, it saves on time, the communication loop,
Yeah.
and money, and so it's
Yeah.
just this, um really great solution for companies and people to move quickly,
Yeah.
build effectively. And there is a side of the conversation that people have pushed back on and say, well, just because you can build anything doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
now that you have a hammer,
Yeah.
not everything's a
Yeah.
nail.
Of course. Yeah.
But I think that's where the differentiator, in my opinion, is your brain, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
seeing the problems firsthand, and at least having an inkling of what should be built. Maybe it's
Yeah.
not exactly the right thing based because
Yeah.
you get feedback and you iterate,
Yeah. Of
but
course.
using those critical thinking skills and at least trying to build out the problem. It's super empowering, and I think it's definitely the future. So
Yeah. And speaking about enterprises, and I don't know if they're in the conversations that you have with customers and things like, how are enterprises looking at something like Lovable? Because obviously, you know, they've got these large scale projects, right? And is this something that is also gaining traction on that side as well, based on your conversations?
yeah, so I think, let's caveat this by saying it's still very new, right? And I think
Yeah.
people are
Yeah.
trying to figure out, what do we
Yeah.
do with this here? What
Mm,
I've heard and what I've seen is, there's a full spectrum of
mm,
where a company, where their appetite is for
yeah.
adopting a tool like this. What I've seen starting to happen is that the companies are encouraging, whether it's product managers or marketing folks, to do what we're talking about. You're close
Mm,
to the problem. If there's a need and there's a solution that needs to be built, go try it. Go test
mm,
it out. That is actually more of an advanced stage company that's
yeah.
adopted AI right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I think, what I'm starting to have conversations around with companies is, hey, let's do a hackathon. Let's do an internal
Yeah.
hackathon. One day we'll teach your team how to build with Lovable. What is a PRD? What's a design system? Those sorts of nuts and bolts in terms of being really powerful in a platform like Lovable. And then let's give them some time to brainstorm problems, build it, and then we'll have a little friendly competition at the end, right? And
Yeah.
so that kind of orchestrating sort of internal hackathons or buildathons, I'm seeing people get excited about that as a way
Mm,
to, first of all, teach your team,
yeah.
and then encourage that adoption too. So
Yeah. And in regards to obviously the people doing these hackathons and buildathons, are you finding that it's, even though this is like the next best thing for the business side,
Mhm.
are a lot of tech people also kind of showing excitement and playing around with Lovable?
I think so too. And I want to be clear, my point of view is not, we don't need engineers, we don't
Yeah,
need
yeah,
developers anywhere. Like, we desperately need
yeah,
that talent, right?
yeah,
Because we I'm saying we operators can only
Yes.
get it so far,
So
right?
far,
And
yeah.
then there is definitely a need, especially in an enterprise,
Yeah.
to bring on a team that is, understands security and
Yeah.
can run tests on it and make sure that it is truly stable. Um, but I think, right now the excitement from the operating side of whether it's a small company or a larger
Mm.
company is just, this empowerment, or, to build things that
Yeah.
we see could benefit the business. And then if there's traction and leadership likes it, whether if it's customer facing,
Mm.
customers are liking it, then I think that's when you can bring in those development teams or
Yeah.
engineers to help really make sure it's stable and secure
Yeah.
to scale it.
Yeah. And you're lovable ambassador. So, you're spreading the word, you're, growing, trying to help grow the community. I'm interested to know, have you come across people who've not even heard of it, right? They just maybe don't go on social
Yeah,
media, haven't heard of it, they don't have a
yeah,
clue about it. How
yeah.
do you explain that to them without it kind of sounding like, okay, everyone's talking about AI, so you're just trying to act smart, talk about AI. So how do you kind of explain
Yeah,
that to them?
yeah, it's interesting. I think sometimes terms can scare people away. So
Yes, definitely.
like vibe coding, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't code, and
Yeah.
vibe coding sounds like it's sort of a relaxed way of it. I don't like that,
Yeah.
or even AI. I like to focus on the building concept because, and frankly, the creating side of it, right?
Mm,
That there is an element of artistry that goes into this, right? And so I think that resonates. I'm thinking specifically with
yeah.
some friends of mine here in Minneapolis. We have a Lovable SheBuilds Buildathon that's coming in a few
Nice.
weeks, and I've sent the invite around to some friends, and some people are hesitant to join,
Mm,
and so I kind of make a joke out of it. It's like, you basically get out your magic wand and you get to wave it around, right?
yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's going to be messy, like a paintbrush, right? Sometimes it's going to be
Yes.
messy, but there are, different frameworks and different
Mm,
strategies that we can use to be better at
yeah.
building. But I think really it's that initial spark that, I won't go down the product rabbit
Yeah.
hole of, that
Yeah.
that initial spark is what sets great products apart
Mm,
from average products. But Lovable has really nailed that, in my opinion. Even compared to some of the other vibe coding
yeah.
platforms out there, is that for people who don't have that coding background, like myself,
Mm,
you literally can just open up Lovable, put in a prompt for free right now. You can go to
yeah.
lovable.dev and do it, and you'd be amazed at what you get back. And that, for me and for so many other people, sparks that creativity. And so, to your point of, well, not everyone wants to, talk about AI or do
Yeah.
AI, like,
Yeah.
fine, let's not talk about it. We don't need to talk about the back end if you don't want
Yeah.
to, but it's just what is the possibility, and what can you open your mind to? I think that's the
Yeah.
exciting piece.
Yeah. And you mentioned the She Builds Hackathon coming up. Do you want to tell us a bit about that coming up on International Women's Day?
Sure. So SheBuilds is a community within Lovable, that is for women specifically, but also open to allies. But it started back at that first buildathon that I joined and
Yeah.
ended up winning.
Yeah.
That was the first one, and that was in October of 2025. So it's a fairly
Mm,
new program, fairly
yeah.
new community, and it took off like wildfire. So it's one of those things, right, where the company launched it thinking, well, we hope we get 60 signups.
Yeah. Yeah.
They got
Yeah.
3,000, right?
Wow.
And then they did a second one after that, in, I believe it was December. So
Mm,
there's really this global community that's very excited about building together and empowering other women to do that. And so on March 8th for International Women's Day, that it's not a competition on this day. We're calling it a build-a-thon. So you come there, a lot of cities across the globe. So I'll share the link with you if you want
yep.
to, you can go
Definitely.
see what events are in your area.
Yeah.
And it's just a time, many of the events are 3 hours long. Come in, we'll do an initial, what is Lovable? How do you build with it? What can you do? Kind of introduction. And then we'll have some time to play and build and Lovable. all credits are free on that day, so it's a great sandbox moment, right, to come in and experiment. And hopefully, I know that Lovable feels this way, I feel this way. The more women we can encourage to get involved in building with AI, the better we are going to
Yeah.
be as a world. But
Yeah.
also, we're already seeing that gap, that AI adoption gap
Yeah.
between men and women, and so we're trying to do everything we can to close that
Yeah.
chasm.
Yeah. And I think even before AI, obviously, technology as a whole there's always been this trying to catch up, right? To kind of create
Yeah,
more. I think the term women in tech has been around for so long,
yeah,
right? So many initiatives
sure,
trying to break that, and it's still an ongoing problem.
yeah,
And I think, with AI, obviously it's increasing, but these initiatives definitely give an opportunity for, especially with people like you who were frustrated before,
mhm,
couldn't do anything, and
mhm,
now in the space of, not even a year, you've
yeah,
transformed your kind of career, right? And
totally,
so
yeah,
so it can motivate other women who just think, okay, well, I'll never get in that space because I'm
yeah,
not capable. It's a man's world, or whatever, right?
are not interested or whatever. Yeah,
Exactly. So
I
I think it's definitely a great thing that they're doing, and the fact that they're doing it so regularly will only build
yeah.
more momentum,
And
for
I
them.
I do warn people that it is the gateway drug. So,
Yeah, yeah,
and I think just in all seriousness to your
yeah,
point, what I found through joining SheBuilds is the power of
mm,
community.
yeah,
And especially I think for women, I've
mm,
joined several other communities since
yeah,
then, and it's great because you can ask other people, "What are you building?" And there's no hubris that people
yeah,
are open to helping one another and teaching.
mm,
And so
yeah.
that's been a really eye-opening experience for me as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think, obviously you lot all sharing notes, right? That's how, you all improve. Even if someone's
Yeah,
newer than you, there's
right.
something that they might be doing that you might have not thought of, or whatever,
Exactly.
right? It's about helping each other kind of grow
Totally.
together, and kind of like when we spoke online, you make so many friendships even out of these communities of people that didn't exist a year
Right.
ago.
Just life is so much richer. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously, with these tools, some leaders will worry about, is this going to create chaos, right? Is this going to kind of,
Mhm.
what guardrails have we got? What kind of advice would you give to leaders who are skeptical, and, they just worried about, the guardrails, and too many people having, like you mentioned, doing too much?
Yeah. I see that a lot right now. I'm working with clients who feel that
Mm,
way too, so I understand. And I think it's all about baby steps, right? And so we talked about maybe that company hosts a hackathon or a build-a-thon
mm,
internally with the premise of whatever you build here is we're not necessarily going to
yeah,
use it, right?
yeah,
But we can just use it as a safe sandbox to experiment and
yeah,
see what's possible. And then I think from there, then a lot of companies are trying to figure this out right now. But I
yeah,
think then from there, you can set up different guardrails, right? For
mm,
if a company adopts Lovable, they maybe will only use it for internal tools. Nothing
yeah,
will be customer facing
mm,
because, we don't want to show a customer something that could be broken, even if it's like a proposal document, right?
yeah,
Nothing that's like core to the business. Um, so I think there's stages of adoption, right? And so first is kind of playtime, hackathon.
yeah,
Second is for internal use only.
mm,
And then I think the third, more advanced one, which I'm seeing some companies do, is they will build, ROI calculators that their sales
mm,
team can then share with
yeah.
customers, or different customer facing tools that again are not integral to the business but help grow the business. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm interested in your conversations, like you touched on, everyone wants AI, right? Everyone,
yes,
they want
everyone
to do
wants the AI
something,
now.
right? They
Yeah,
don't know what they want. Some
right.
do, very, very small percentage want something. Another percentage have tried and failed. Others are just trying to work it out because they want to build something in AI, right? Are you
Right.
finding there's a lot of leaders who are kind of just, because there's so many tools now that are kind of, AI powered, where AI this, AI that, agentic, is that confusing even more for them because they just don't know which one to go down?
I think there's the problem of that there's a lot of tools, and then the problem that things are changing so quickly,
Yeah.
right? So even the
Yeah.
sentiment of, are you using ChatGPT versus Claude? Like, which is
Yeah.
the best,
I feel that a lot. Yeah.
and how as a company do you choose the enterprise license that you're getting,
Yeah.
because things are moving so
Mm.
quickly. And so what I've seen work for some companies is partnering with someone, whether it's a consultant who leads AI transformation, or even it doesn't have to be that fancy title, right? Maybe
Yeah.
someone who's very knowledgeable about the space and can provide advice on, you know, a few select tools to
Mm.
try, roll them out,
Yeah.
assess properly, is this working? Are people adopting it? Um, and having that strategic lens through
Yeah.
rolling out and adoption, but then also paired with having someone internally to be the champion,
Yeah.
because you need someone who will encourage adoption. Maybe they hold office hours once a week,
Yeah.
right? People can come in and ask questions about,
Mm.
so that, again, that community aspect and sharing notes, I've seen work really well too at companies.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. And you touched on, design systems earlier in the conversation. Can you talk me through, why they're so important for, non-traditional builders?
Yeah, so this was something that was shared with me from a friend who is he was a Lovable ambassador before me,
Okay.
saw that I was doing the hackathon and said, "Hey, here's a video I did on design
Yeah.
systems. Why don't you watch it? It might be helpful." It was a game changer.
Okay.
And so, my AI recess is built using a design system called Neo Brutalism, and it's
Mhm.
basically kind of like retro video game vibe. And so that was really eye-opening for me, again, because it set what I was building, it set it apart from the sort of generic output of these vibe coding platforms. And I'm not trained in product design, but I have gone down the rabbit hole and I'm
Yeah.
very interested in it. And so, there are a lot of different design types that you can use, but I think from a productivity and functionality standpoint, the big takeaway I have is once you start your project on Lovable and you share with it a design system, any iteration that you make following that will follow the design system. So now all of a sudden your buttons, your typography, your colors, they are all cohesive, and you don't have to waste time saying you built the wrong color
Yeah.
button, and
Yeah.
so it's one is making what you build stand out, but then it's also just it saves you time in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah. And with obviously Lovable, it's Swedish company,
Mhm.
right? And usually, a lot, I found from other platforms, usually when they're European founded, it takes a while to take off on this side of the pond, right? And
Okay.
that could
Yeah.
be because of marketing or whatever. How are you finding the community in the US itself, even outside of where you are? How how is that growing, and how do you see that kind of going in the future?
Yeah. So, this is my opinion, but I think
Yeah,
a couple of things that might have helped Lovable is, they do have backing from VCs that are in the United
sure.
States.
Yeah,
They have offices in San Francisco and Boston, so they have pretty good
yeah,
communities around there. But I think honestly, what helped it spread like wildfire is that moment that we were talking about,
yeah,
that initial moment when you prompt it and you
mm,
get back this, often like
yeah,
9.5 times out of 10, it's going to be this
yeah,
incredible thing. Sure, they're going to be, whether it's a
yeah.
landing page or whatever, you're going to need to tweak it. But
Mm,
that initial aha moment, I think, is really what helped it spread like wildfire. And um, the fact that they have this focus on community, and
yeah,
I think that has really helped, bring people together, so it's not this sort of black box where, you need to know how to code or at least not be intimidated by a terminal,
yeah.
right?
Sure.
Like, it's very user friendly. Literally, my 5-year-old vibe coded something a week ago.
Nice.
He really wanted to play this video game, and as
Yeah,
a parent, I'm not so sure about some of the
yeah.
video
Sure.
games. So I said, I'm obsessed with Lovable, and I said, well, why
Yeah,
don't you build it yourself? And it was kind
yeah.
of just like, what? And, and so I turned on the speaker, and I asked him the different questions, and then he just spoke in and built this video game that he wants to come home and play after school.
Yeah,
And so my point in sharing that is it's so easy a 5-year-old can
Yeah,
do it,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like, and that aha moment is just, it's
yeah,
incredible.
yeah. And I think it's also what's good about it. Obviously, it comes around. It has taken off, and I think it's very appealing to even the younger generation.
Mm.
Not 5-year-olds, but even
No,
just people kind of coming through college and things like that, right? Who kind
yeah.
of maybe weren't thinking about going down the technology
Mhm.
route, right? And now they think, actually, you know what, maybe you studied business, right? Someone
Yeah.
studying business or
Yeah.
whatever might be a lot more open to, if they change their mindset of AI is going to take my job and actually think AI can help me achieve
Yeah.
so much. I
Mhm.
think that's kind of, really helpful. Where the ones who kind of are sick of hearing it, they may actually be left behind if they don't want to utilize the tools
Yeah.
available to them.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's spot on. It's the democratization of
Yeah.
technology, right?
Yeah.
It's, y you don't have to be a certain thing or a certain person to be interested or excited about technology, right? It
Yeah.
it sort of just allows more people to be involved, in that community, and what I think is so cool is then we're just gonna get a lot of more variety and better
Yeah.
ideas,
Yeah.
right? And it's just, I sound like pie in the sky a little bit, but I truly believe like it's um things can be good and things can be bad. And I think that I choose to have hope for the future and how
Mm.
people are going to use this technology.
Yeah. And, going back to AI research and, obviously that came from a better way to teach AI, right? So, what do you think is kind of, with other AI training that you've seen, what do you think is kind of, because even, on my LinkedIn and other feeds, it's everyone's offering some type of AI training, right?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
the big universities and everything like that, what do you think doesn't work with those, which kind of made you, rather than obviously just follow one of them, do your own?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's it's very close to home. I
Yeah,
literally have a wish list of things I wanna learn and classes I
yeah,
want courses I wanna take. I don't have enough time, and I think
yeah,
that's a common problem for a lot of
yeah,
people is, you know, if you are open and interested in learning, then time is the bottleneck, right?
yeah,
You can't learn all of this in one place, and so,
mm,
um, that was the idea behind AI Recess is how do
mm,
we think about what do we need to do
mm,
and pair that with how can we maybe do it a little bit better
mm,
using
yeah,
Perplexity, Claude, or Lovable. And
mm,
so, next on my list that I'm working through right now is building agents, right? And I'm
nice,
continuing to build out AI Recess, so I'm
yeah,
going to put some of that in there.
yeah,
So again, it's a 5-minute exercise. You at least, if you hear someone say, "I built 10 agents," you at least
yeah,
can say, "Well, I built one,"
yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
exactly, yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah,
And again, that democratization of technology and allowing people to feel comfortable understanding the terms and thinking, "Yeah, I can do that. I've done it."
yeah, yeah, that's amazing. That's really cool that it's evolving, right? You're taking it to the kind of next level for people because obviously, like you said earlier, it's changing so fast, right? There's so
Exactly.
many things changing where, even one training today, tomorrow might be, might not be very relevant, so
I
it's
know.
important to stay on top of it.
And that's the thing, I go to YouTube a lot for
Yeah.
free education. I will not look at videos that were posted 5 months ago.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
won't.
Exactly. Right. There's
It
no
takes
point.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And then, you've spoken about obviously learning should happen while people are doing their actual work, not in their own time, right? Because obviously, you know, those skills help the employer or whoever, So why do you think that is the most important thing? Why should employers be really pushing people? Because I see even, I think in many ecosystems, training and development and learning is an afterthought, right? It's kind of,
Mhm,
okay, we might do some really quick training and then off you go,
mhm.
sink or swim kind of, but it should be more kind of ongoing, embedded into their day to day.
Right. I think it's kind of analogous to adding meetings on the calendar, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't
Yeah.
have time to,
Yeah.
and so I think if someone, if it's a business owner or someone leading a team can spend 30 minutes or
Mm,
thinking about what are the things that my team is working on right now that could be helped or expedited
yeah.
through using AI, then that's the way to teach
Mm,
because it's they're already doing it, they're already spending time on those tasks too, and these tasks should be helping the company grow,
Yes,
right?
of
In
course.
theory. And so
Yeah.
then we're all aligned with how we're spending our time, what we're working on, and learning, right?
Yeah.
And so what I've seen happen is that maybe the business owner or the team leader doesn't know what the technology should be.
Mm.
That's okay. I think that's when you can pull in a consultant or
Yeah.
someone to help you think that
Sure.
through. But that's kind of what AI Recess is trying to do on a very
Mm.
self-service
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
But the next step would be to bring in someone
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
technology to help.
Amazing. And finally, for someone listening to this who's curious, still hasn't thought about doing it, right? What's something, what's the smallest step you would ask them to do this week or to get started? What advice would you give?
Yeah, I think the best thing that I did was I opened up Lovable, I typed in a prompt to build it was a landing page that I wanted to
Yeah.
build, and that was my aha moment, and I realized, "Oh my gosh, the things that I can build with this." And so
Yeah.
don't yes, I harped on the PRD and being
Mm.
thoughtful and planning out your project. That's once you're really cooking with gas and
Yeah.
using the platform. The first thing, you hear it a lot, but it's just start. Just
Mhm.
open the browser, type in a prompt, and start and see what the possibilities are, and you will probably end up spending a couple hours because it's very addicting, but I
Yeah.
think that first step is the most difficult and the most important.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to speak to me. I think it'd be great. It's still an early journey even for you, right? So I think it'd be great to talk again in the future and see
I
how
would love
things
that.
have evolved and changed. And, obviously the platform is still fairly new as well, right? So there's so much going on. So I'd really love to speak to you again in the future.
I would love that too, and thanks for having me.
Thank you.